Hello, friends. It's Syracuse Sports back at you here. My name is Brent Axe. It's amazing to be with you as always. You know what else is amazing? What off season? There's no such thing as an off season. Syracuse football is about to begin its 2025 season against Tennessee. It is game week, Atlanta, Saturday afternoon. I'm not going to ask you if you're ready for football. Of course, you're ready for football. But the team that's going to take the field on Saturday has been quite a story since the team that walked off the field in San Diego in a victory over Washington State in the Holiday Bowl. Kyle McCord walked off that field as a record-setting quarterback, the ACC's single-season passing leader, and one of the great one-season athletes in Syracuse football history. He got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. A number of players in that game got drafted as well. LaQuint Allen to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fidel Diggs got drafted by the New Orleans Saints. Oronde Gadsden got drafted by the Los Angeles Chargers. And a number of Orange are trying to make NFL camps. Marlowe Wax, Jackson Meeks, who's having an amazing camp with the Detroit Lions. Justin Barron and Elijah Clark amongst those players. So Syracuse did what every team in college football has to do these days. They went into the transfer portal. And coming out of the spring, we thought that LSU transfer, Ricky Collins Jr., was the starter. He was QB1 out of the spring. But Collins suffered an injury right at the end of spring ball, which prevented him from playing in the spring game. And a player that caught the eye of Fran Brown, first in recruiting when he was at Temple trying to recruit young Steve Angeli, who, as Fran likes to remind us, didn't return his phone calls then and at Rutgers as well. But also a connection. Nunzio Campanelli's brother, Vito, coached Steve Angeli at Bergen Catholic. Steve Angeli lost out in the bid for Notre Dame's starting quarterback. That's a job that C.J. Carr eventually won in camp. And a performance in the college football playoff when Angeli went down the field. A crucial drive for Notre Dame that probably would have cost them the game if he did not execute. In for an injured Riley Leonard. Caught the attention again of Fran Brown. Man, if that guy's in the portal, we're going to get him. He did go in the portal, and Syracuse did get him. He is the starting quarterback for Syracuse in this game. Joey Aguilar, a quarterback who was not even on the Tennessee roster until after one of the amazing stories of the offseason. We all know what happened with Nico in Tennessee and how he ended up at UCLA, but it's Joey Aguilar against Steve Angeli. If I told you that a few months ago, you would have looked at me like I had lobsters crawling out of my ears. But that, my friends, is the portal. Syracuse is going to have 4 new offensive linemen on the field potentially, no matter who lines up from left to right. A number of transfers will be in the mix to play there for the Orange. One of the most explosive weapons that Syracuse added in the offseason and has been lighting up training camp is Jonte Cook, a transfer wide receiver from Texas. Syracuse added on the defensive side of the ball as well, notably linebacker Gary Bryant, who had 106 tackles at South Dakota a year ago. Can he step up and do it at this level from the FCS to the Division I FBS Power 4 level? So there's a lot of new faces that are going to have an impact on Syracuse one way or the other. But the conversation is always going to come back to one thing when it comes to this football team, and that is that it has one of the toughest schedules in all of college football. When you are playing Tennessee, Clemson, Miami, SMU, and Notre Dame all the way from the comfy confines of the JMA Wireless Dome, that's some tough sledding right there. Oh, by the way, 4 of those teams were in the college football playoff last year. 5 Syracuse opponents are ranked in the preseason top 25. Let's not leave Georgia Tech out of this conversation as well, who's just outside a lot of top 25s, and is another team that Syracuse has to face on the road. They're actually going to play 2 games in Atlanta this year, the opener against Tennessee and Georgia Tech later on down the road. So I think there's a line of demarcation here. There is a blinking neon light here that I think most Syracuse fans are settling on, and that is 7-5. Now, if Fran Brown is watching this right now or listening to this pod, and if he is, hello, Coach. Thanks for being a listener to Syracuse Sports. He would be disgusted by us settling for 7-5. But let's be honest here. If I have appeared in front of you magically out of my flying DeLorean time machine, and I have come from the future, and what I am offering you is proof that Syracuse went 7-5. And my offer to you was this: Syracuse football, no matter what the combination of wins is and where they come from, is going to be a 7-5 football team in 2025. I'll pull out my Howie Mandel impression here. Deal or no deal? I think most of you would take that deal. All things considered, the tough schedule, the inexperience at certain positions on the football field. Oh, by the way, there's a 17-year-old that's going to start a cornerback for Syracuse, a 17-year-old who was 16 in spring practice when Fran Brown not only anointed him one of his starting cornerbacks, he's going to play two ways. He's going to play wide receiver for this football team as well. Does Syracuse have its own Travis Hunter in the midst? Just another storyline to follow in this 2025 season. But I think most of you, if I got you alone on a mountaintop while wishing and hoping for 12-0, and remember, this is a team that was a 4th-1 and 4th-9 away from being in the college football playoff last year, something they have reminded themselves with by wearing the T-shirts in camp throughout the offseason. Well, 7-5 sounds pretty darn good. It would be amazing to see if Syracuse, despite all the things you could put in front of them that would prevent you from saying this, can be better than 7-5, can be 8-4, 9-3, even with that schedule. I think most of us would take that deal, right? But that's why they play the games, friends. And here we are on the brink of a season starting. And the thing about football is you could spend an entire offseason talking yourself into a number, a record, and it could all blow up in game one. Or it could all change in game one if they exceed what those expectations are. What an amazing game to open up the season. Tennessee. Remember Syracuse-Tennessee, 1998? Now, that one was in the Dome. One of the worst calls I've ever seen. They gave Tennessee that game. And a Tennessee team led by T. Martin, not Peyton Manning. This was after Peyton Manning goes on to win the national championship. I don't think this Tennessee squad is on that level, but they're coming off a college football playoff appearance, and they're pretty darn good. Eric Cain is here to tell us all about this Tennessee team. Are they fairly ranked in the preseason top 25 by the virtue of what's on this team, or is this just a brand and a team that's being carried over from a college football playoff appearance last year? Where are the strengths and weaknesses of this team? What do we need to know about the Tennessee Volunteers? And just how many Tennessee fans are Syracuse fans going to encounter in Atlanta this upcoming weekend? Eric Cain is from VolQuest, great website that covers all things Tennessee Volunteers. He also does the Locked On Vols podcast. If you want to keep up on everything going on with Tennessee, especially this week with Syracuse-Tennessee game week, Eric would be right at the top of my list of people to follow and keep up with this week. So we'll talk to Eric here shortly, but just a reminder that what we love to do here on Syracuse Sports is feature your original music. Now, I've got to address something here about that. It's a great and fair question that a number of you have brought up. Yeah, Brent, how come you don't do music on the live pod? So once in a while, we'll do live podcasts here. Javon Edmonds, Chris Carlson, and I were doing live podcasts throughout training camp. The easy answer there, guys, is editing. When we do live pods, it's just a little more complicated to incorporate the music. It's much easier for me to do when we record the pod and I can edit it in. So maybe one day we'll figure that out because I love to feature your original music, and hopefully we can do that. But we're doing it today. And the band is Terri Sofisticated. They're out of Birmingham, Alabama, but they're big Cuse fans. Shout out to my guy, David, who sent in this terrific song. It's called Ashes. So what we'll do here is we'll feature a little bit of that song, and then we'll play it in its entirety at the end of the podcast. And if you're an original musician, you have music, either in a band, yourself, you know someone who's a great musician and could use a little help getting their music a little more exposure, we are happy to do that here on Syracuse Sports. All the information is in the show notes. Check it out there on how you can get in touch to have your original music featured here on Syracuse Sports. So let's do that now. We'll listen to Terri Sofisticated, and then we'll listen to Eric Cain tell us all about those Tennessee Volunteers.
Time will come.
Eric, optimism never higher than it is at this moment. We were just saying before we started recording, we're both ready for some real football, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's off season feels like it gets longer and longer every single year, and there's lists and there's polls and there's this guy said this about this quarterback and this guy said this about this team, and that's all great. But we're at the end of August and it's time to strap up and go. So we're ready to roll.
We're ready to rock. What off season? That doesn't exist anymore these days,
Yeah.
but it keeps us busy, so that's a good thing. So in this moment where everybody thinks their team's going 12-0 and going to the college football playoff, realistically, though, if I got a Syracuse fan alone on a mountaintop and I said, look, all things considered, the brutal schedule they have, put it all in the mix. I have come back from 5 months from now, and this team went 7-5. Deal or no deal? Like, I think most Syracuse fans would at the very least contemplate that. What's your deal or no deal that you would offer Tennessee fans right now, just knowing everything we know about this team and what you think they can be?
Yeah, I think it would be 9-3. I'm never going to say a team in the SEC's got an easy schedule. I mean, Tennessee's got Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Alabama and Florida on the road, Georgia week 3. There's other challenging games on that schedule. But when you look at the scope of things, you look at the other SEC strength of schedules, Tennessee, Georgia, Missouri, they got, I mean, it's manageable, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so I think the schedule helps Tennessee. Tennessee's got an incredible defense. It should be the strong suit yet again for Tennessee, just like in 2024. The Volunteers have always ran the football well under Josh Heupel. Last year was incredible. You lose the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. But again, Josh Heupel has found ways to run with every team he's had here at Tennessee. And I think that's going to be a strength for the Vols. And you look at the offensive line, they replace a lot, but I think this, a higher ceiling for this group coming up. And it's about quarterback play. You just don't know. You don't know about wide receivers, a lot of unknowns there. So given the schedule, recognizing what you lost, recognizing the tailspin you were in at the end of spring ball when your quarterback just leaves you, I think 9-3 would be make or break. And I think that majority of Tennessee fans would be like, okay, well, I mean, that still has us losing to some of the bigger ones or maybe winning a big one and losing one you shouldn't or whatever. But 9-3, that's a pretty good season to get you in a good spot for a bowl. And depending on when that third loss is, I mean, you're probably right there in the college football playoff conversation.
It's amazing how, and you mentioned a couple of things I want to follow up on in a second here, but it all starts with the quarterback, as you said. And I think people are pretty familiar with the offseason that Tennessee had at the quarterback position, which all led to Joey Aguilar coming in. But it's interesting how they mirror each other, Eric, because Tennessee has a new quarterback who came in after the spring and 4 offensive linemen to replace. Syracuse is in the same position. They have a quarterback, Steve Angeli, Notre Dame transfer, who comes in, wins the job, and they have 4 offensive linemen to replace. And you mentioned that great defense that Tennessee's leaning on here. But let me ask about Joey first. Everybody's kind of familiar with the story of how he got to win this job once he arrived in Tennessee.
Yeah, I think that experience talks, and he certainly, nothing was guaranteed to him. Nothing was set in stone. If you want to transfer here, here's the keys. He had to go out and earn it. But he was in competition. I think it was a good competition, but it was against 2 guys, one a true freshman and one a redshirt freshman that played in 2 games in mop-up duty last year. So I think at the end of the day, experience talks. Joey Aguilar's been in live games. He's seen defenses. He's made big plays. He's played in front of 85,000 fans before, on the road in some of those big non-conference games. I know he was Appalachian State, but I think experience talks. I mean, he's got a quick release. I think he's got good hips. I think he's got good footwork inside the pocket. Sure, he's got a bit of a gunslinger mentality, if you will. And I think if you go back and look at what his body of work at Appalachian State, you can kind of see that for sure. But I think he gives Tennessee the best option to win right now. And, it's funny, and this is a bigger conversation. I think Nico Iamaleava, sky's the limit for him. I mean, I think he's got unbelievable talent, right? I mean, you're the number 1 rated prospect for a reason. But you look at his stats from a season ago, and, it wasn't because of him Tennessee made the playoff. It's because that run game and that defense. And again, I think Tennessee will have both of those this year. So for Joey, you just go out there and play. Don't go out there and try to be Nico Iamaleava or try to prove everybody that you're good enough to be here at Tennessee. Just go out there and play your game. You're going to have help. And I think that's kind of what the coaching staff has been trying to tell him all preseason. But they had a second scrimmage last Friday, and he played very well, slammed the door shut, and they went ahead and made that announcement this past weekend that he would be indeed the quarterback.
You mentioned the running game. Dylan Sampson, what he did last year speaks for itself. All SEC player, drafted, the whole deal. How do they replace him? It feels like there's three guys there that you look at some labels and how some people have looked at it. They're kind of 1A, B, and C. Maybe they're trying to figure out who emerges from that group. But what do you see there?
It's funny. I've been calling Deshaun Bishop 1A all offseason, Peyton Lewis 1B,
there you go,
and Star Thomas 2. I think they've got three guys that they really, really like. Star Thomas, I'll work in reverse order. Junior college, New Mexico State, Duke, and now Tennessee. I mean, he's been all over the place, and he's produced everywhere he's been. I think he's really good with the ball in his hands in space. I think he can catch the football out of the backfield, and I don't know how many touches he's going to get, but he's going to be a part of the rotation for sure. Peyton Lewis did a great job this offseason, really working on his body. He's the bigger back, about 210, but he just looks a whole lot bigger, has great speed, physical runner. I think he's going to be a really, really good player. Still young, just a sophomore. Deshaun Bishop, great story. Local kid here in Knoxville, was a walk-on, went through some injuries earlier in his career, and then just kept going at it and wouldn't go away. And last year he proved he was, second string to Dylan Sampson, and he proved he can play in this league, and he had some really good numbers last year. So in earlier years with Josh Heupel, his running backs coach was Jerry Mack, and they did more of a 2 to 3 man rotation. Last year with Darrell Sims, it was just a one-man show with Dylan Sampson with sprinkling in some others. I'm intrigued to see what that rotation looks like this year because Tennessee has three guys that can play. They have a freshman that's coming on as well, but he's probably fourth in the pecking order. Dylan Sampson, great player. Going to be hard to replace him, but I think collectively Tennessee loves its options. And again, the scheme helps them run. They spread things out and create some run lanes, and Tennessee benefits from that greatly.
At the receiver and tight end position, there's an interesting mix there, Eric, from the outside looking in. Receiver, Tennessee's always going to have talent. They just don't have experience. I think there's a total of 84 catches in the room, right? So who are some guys you think can emerge in the talent category? But it feels like the tight end position, if there's anything that Joey Aguilar is going to count on, is there's definitely talent in that room.
Yeah, I guess if you count the tight end room with the receiver room, there's something like 84. I was thinking just straight wide receiver, and I'm like, no way, there's 84.
Not that many. Okay, yeah. So even less than we think, yeah.
Yeah, to your point, though, there's so much talent there. It's just so unproven. And Tennessee fans and people like me, kind of been critical at times. Tennessee only has 7 scholarship wide receivers. So Do you play 7? No, but man, a couple of those guys were beat up in fall camp, and you were down, and you were scraping the bottom of the barrel. So an injury here or there could really kind of derail that room. But anyway, a lot of talent. Mike Matthews, former 5-star, was sidelined a little bit in fall camp last year, so he was slow out of the gates, and I think everybody wanted to see more of him. Braylon Staley came on and played a lot in the playoff game last year, and he's going to be in the slot position. I think he's got a lot of upside. Chris Brazel's the leading receiver, returning, and he had 29 receptions, I think 4 touchdowns, had a big touchdown reception against Alabama last year. He just needs to put it together, and kind of like Dante Thornton in 2023, kind of stumbled out of the gate with Tennessee, the big wide receiver acquisition. Took him a year, and then he took off, and that's kind of the hope for Chris Brazel this year. So those 3 guys up front, they got 2 freshmen, Darius Jackson and Travis Smith. Travis Smith, I believe, is a top 100 player. Really, really talented guys. Those 2 are going to play for sure. And then a couple other guys that we'll see if they can factor in. So, again, there's a lot of talent, like you said, just not a whole lot of proven production whatsoever. At tight end, Miles Kitselman, man, he really benefited from the Diego Pavia ruling. Got an extra year. Star Thomas as well in the backfield. And, he's Tennessee's leader. He's Tennessee's guy they turn to on offense. And the tight end position is never going to have 10 receptions for 100 yards in a game. But in big spots, they're going to go to him. And he'll flex out. He'll be in line. He'll line up at H-back. They ask so much of the tight end position. And Miles Kitselman is going to lead that way. Ethan Davis is going to play as well. They primarily have played 2 a lot. But I think they're going to play more this year. There are 2 freshmen. And I don't know how much they'll see against Syracuse, but Jack Van Dorselaer and Desan Brame, they've had very good camps, and they all look the part. So I think the tight end room, again, where you have a lot of unknown about receiver, a quarterback, the running back room, the tight end room, really going to kind of help, elevate and bring up that offense.
So we've talked about the pieces in the puzzle here, Eric. By and large, what does Josh Heupel want to do on offense? What's kind of the identity if he had to put a mission statement on the wall that he generally wants the Tennessee offense to be?
He wants to go fast. He wants to run the football. Okay, and everybody from afar, it's kind of a misconception. Man, it's football 101. He says it does all the time. It's got to run the ball. You can't do anything unless you can run the ball. You can't be one-dimensional in this league. And So he wants to go fast, play with tempo, which they were slowed a little bit last year. Wants to run the football, okay, and he wants the explosives on offense. And in 2021 and 2022, with Hendon Hooker, Alex Golesh as his offense coordinator, and Tennessee was lighting it up, man. Now, they had to score 40 points to win games, right? That's like last year, they slowed some things down a little bit because they could win games by playing defense and really leaning on the run and running less tempo. And that's how he's kind of evolved as a head coach. But he wants to go fast, run the football. He wants those explosives down the field. The last 2 years with Joe Milton and Nico Iamaleava, not as many explosive plays down the field. And credit some defenses. They've been daring Tennessee to run, making light boxes, putting 3 high safeties and saying, we're going to keep everything in front of us, and Tennessee's just ran the football and ran it effectively. So I think he wants to do those things, and I think Josh puts a big emphasis on red zone efficiency, and Tennessee was not where it needed to be last year. I don't have the percentage in front of me, but it was one of the lower ones in the Southeastern Conference in terms of punching it in for a touchdown when you're inside the 20. So wants to catch in there, explosive plays, run the football, and, of course, get back to more of a tempo offense.
You noted it, though, Eric. It feels like to flip over to the defensive side of the ball. That's what this team hangs its hat on. They had, statistically, you look at all the numbers, one of the better defenses in the country in the SEC last year. You noted it. That's how they got to the playoff, not with quarterback play. So what does the 2025 defense look like versus the one that got into the college football playoff a year ago?
Well, you lose James Pierce, a first-rounder for the Atlanta Falcons, and, his stats were down a little bit sack-wise, from 23 to 24, but he was still, man, I don't know how big into Pro Football Focus you are. I love the intricacies and the stats that they bring out. Like, he was leading the nation in quarterback pressures, quarterback disruptions, all that and more. I mean, he was making a difference. He just wasn't bringing the quarterback down as much. But you lose him, lose a couple defensive tackles who were here for a long time. But you bring back so many, and, Rodney Garner's a, 30-plus year assistant coach in this league on the defensive line, and he plays a large rotation. Tennessee will play, probably 12, 13 guys up front in a rotation and trying to keep them all fresh. And that's something that Syracuse on the offensive line certainly is probably aware of. But they've got a lot of guys who have played, a lot of guys who have been there, done that. Joshua Joseph's going to try to step up and kind of replace the production left behind from James Pierce. And, again, he led the team in TFLs last year, so it's not like he's a newbie whatsoever. So Tennessee's experienced and deep up front. Linebacker, they're as deep now at linebacker than they've been Josh Heupel's entire, 4-year run here so far. Led by Arian Carter, an all-SEC type player. He's not been named that yet, but he's kind of one of those guys that could be an all-SEC type player. Jeremiah Thielander. Edwin Spillman is a guy that was hurt last year as a true freshman, but played when he was healthy. He's going to play a ton this year. They got a couple of freshmen as well that are going to rotate in. Guys that can, good in the box, but, especially some of these young guys that can play sideline to sideline and get some more speed in the second layer. So they're deeper than they ever have been at linebacker. And then in the back end, which I think is going to be a true strength, especially when Jermon McCoy is back healthy. He will not be back healthy for Syracuse, so that's good for the Orange. But
I was going to ask about him, yeah.
You're talking about an All-American cornerback and a first-round pick coming up next year. Tennessee's hoping, Georgia's week 3. Could he get his toes wet week 2? I don't know. We'll see. He's doing some individual and stuff, is still a ways off. But once you get him back, Ricky Gibson at the other corner, who I think is an NFL guy after this year. Colton Hood transferred in from Colorado, and he might be the most impactful spring transfer Tennessee got because, he can come in and step in for McCoy right away. You're taking a cornerback in Jalen McMurray, and you can move him to star. And then you got a guy in Boo Carter who's a dynamic player for Tennessee, but he's ran into some off-the-field issues, so it's very TBD if he's going to be playing a lot of defense in the Syracuse game. But I know I'm rambling here. The secondary, when everybody's there and accounted for, it's going to be a really, really solid unit. And obviously, as you know, it's only better as good as that front is as well. So, I think Tennessee's defense has a chance to be special this year. They got to replace some production from last year, but a lot of guys that have played a lot of football.
I think that might tell the story of this game, Eric, because you have a quarterback in Steve Angeli who everything we heard through camp, everybody we talked to, the first thing, and it was cited as the reason he won the job, is his knowledge of the offense, his composure, kind of how he can go out there, read defenses. Syracuse has a lot of talent in the wide receiver room, but they're just not in sync yet. So how they find the holes in that secondary you mentioned, who might not have a couple key guys back, I think is going to be a big, big thing to watch in this game. A couple more things for you, though, Eric. Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, opening weekend, couple of games lined up, Virginia Tech and South Carolina to follow. What kind of presence are we expecting from Tennessee fans, not only coming from Knoxville, but from all over in Atlanta? I would imagine they're going to have a little bit of an advantage here, but just how big of an advantage attendance-wise do you think they're going to have in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know specific numbers or anything, but I mean, I would say that the overwhelming majority of people in attendance are going to be wearing the Tennessee shade of orange, because again, it's a short drive from Knoxville. But you're right. I mean, Tennessee fans are all over, and Tennessee fans do an excellent job traveling anyway. Man, I mean, going to see this team, college football playoff last year, bowl games in Florida, Oklahoma last year, Tennessee had a great presence. LSU a couple of years ago. So Tennessee fans love to travel. But with Atlanta being right down the road, I would expect it to be a big Tennessee presence for sure. A neutral site game, but it's kind of like those neutral site games, But Georgia just drives over from Athens to play in Atlanta. Right. It's like, is it really a neutral site game? That's kind of what I'm expecting. A lot of orange, but I think more of the Tennessee shade.
Yeah, the battle for the orange emoji, I think, is what this game is turning into. A lot of Syracuse fans get annoyed when they see that orange emoji being used. Hey, that's our emoji. So not only that, but Syracuse plays Tennessee in basketball this year in the ACC SEC Challenge. So I guess whoever, I don't know what happens if they split that, but maybe we can officially anoint the orange emoji to whichever team takes that series.
I like it.
One more question for you, Eric. I know I'm asking you to speak broadly here, but as you start to look at this game, what do Tennessee fans think of Syracuse? What are they expecting from Syracuse? What are they curious about when they look at this Syracuse team? Like, what are they all about?
Yeah, I think that, kind of like Tennessee, especially on offense, I feel like Syracuse, there's just a lot of unknowns. I think a lot of Tennessee fans, especially diehards, know who Steve Angeli is because, well, Tennessee was looking for a quarterback too. And,
that's right. Yeah.
I spent a show or two talking about Steve Angeli. Could he be a fit? What are his strengths? So I think Tennessee fans have a good idea who Steve Angeli is. And so, obviously knowing who he's replacing, an ACC record-breaking quarterback a season ago. And I think Tennessee fans know Fran Brown is an excellent coach, but just so much unknowns. I mean, McCord leaves, top receivers leave, top rushers leave, 4 or 5 offensive linemen. Correct me if I'm wrong. Defensively, it was okay last year. It wasn't like it was what you hung your hat on. And a lot of production leave from that side of the football too. So I would say not an awful. They don't know an awful lot considering there's just so much turnover for Syracuse, much like Tennessee on the offensive side. But again, I go back to Fran Brown being a good coach. He's going to get his roster, his team, his 2 deep ready to roll for this game, especially the opener. It's kind of like everybody's on level playing field because it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be sloppy. There's going to be missed assignments. I think Tennessee's certainly not overlooking this game for sure.
That's what I'm fascinated with. If Syracuse was playing Tennessee middle of the year, that'd be one thing. But the fact this is the opening game, I remember the 1998 Syracuse-Tennessee opener, and there was a really bad call in that game that we just, we won't go back to that. I think Syracuse, honestly, if you go watch that on YouTube, I think you'll come away from that saying that that official missed that one. But it was an incredible game. And the funny thing was, everybody thinks about that game and they're like, oh yeah, no, that wasn't Peyton Manning. That was T. Martin the year after the Peyton Manning run. Yep. And that's the Tennessee team that made the run all the way. And had Syracuse been able to hold on in that one, it could have been a whole different story. So we got a good history of Syracuse-Tennessee openers. So hopefully the calls are better in this game and are more fair, but hopefully the competitiveness is on that same level. And as you said, you just never know what can come about in a first game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And I really appreciate your time and your perspective and telling us all about Tennessee, and appreciate all the work you do covering this team and keeping us informed on the Volunteers. And I can't wait to see how this one plays out.
Hey, Brent, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
My thanks again to Eric Cain of VolQuest and the Locked On Vols podcast. Great insight there on Tennessee. Keep up with him this week to keep up on all things Tennessee Volunteers. We've got a couple more things coming on the pod this week. We've been having a lot of fun with this. So I gathered some of our Syracuse Sports Insiders, and we are going to do a Syracuse football over-unders. What I've been doing is throwing some over-unders like Steve Angeli, 25.5 touchdowns, over or under, right? Syracuse football wins, 7.5, over and under. I've been throwing these blind at some of our Syracuse Sports Insiders. We're going to gather those up, We're going to have that pod coming out a little bit later this week. We did it last year, had a ball, and we are having a lot of fun putting that together for you as well. So look for that later this week. We're hopefully going to have another pod or two leading into Syracuse and Tennessee on Saturday as well. So the best way to keep up with all this, first of all, is be a Syracuse Sports Insider, which gives you direct text message access to me anytime, all the latest updates, news, information, opinion, analysis, the questions you want us to ask the Syracuse football coaching staff, players, and more. Keep in touch via text, and the way you can do that to get direct text message access to me anytime. You just want to shoot the bull and talk SU sports. That's what it's there for as well. The information right there on your screen or in the show notes on how you can become a Syracuse Sports Insider today. But also, please subscribe if you listen on Spotify or Apple. If you watch on YouTube, subscribe, follow, so when a pod comes up, you can listen and watch on demand on your time. And we're going to be busy not only this week, but we've got our live post-game shows starting to crank up again after every Syracuse football game, and all those channels that I told you to subscribe to, but particularly on YouTube and Facebook when we go live. So we're here. It's football season, guys. Let's get back into this thing, and excited to bring you more exciting content here on Syracuse Sports. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for being a Syracuse Sports Insider. It's exciting that it's game week here, and we are ready to dive in on Syracuse Sports. You guys enjoy your week here. Please subscribe, follow the whole deal, become a Syracuse Sports Insider, and we will talk to you again next time here on Syracuse Sports.